Before sunrise, a 150-meter Longline vessel pushes away from the pier, headed for deep banks where giant halibut live.
Once clear of land, steel, fuel, and crew commit fully to distant shoals and slow, bottom-hugging predators.
On deck, this is pure industry. Huge drums, steel hardware, and men trained for long, repetitive hauling cycles.
In the wheelhouse, depth contours and offshore banks matter more than coastline, guiding them toward traditional halibut grounds.
Every crimp and swivel is checked by hand. A weak connection could waste hours of soak time and tons of bait. The hooks are heavy circle patterns, designed to lock into jaw hinges rather than tear through soft tissue. Below deck, the crew talk quietly about slopes and sand patches where halibut bury themselves waiting for prey. On deck, tubs of bait wait beside the roller, ready to turn a bare mainline into a trail of scent along the bottom.
Bait is threaded carefully, each hook dressed to hang just above the seafloor where halibut patrol slowly.
This is bottom longline work, with heavy weights to pin gear tight to sand and gravel hundreds of meters down.
Over a known offshore bank, the engines throttle back and the long steel hull settles into a slow working speed.
The first anchor vanishes into the chop, fixing an invisible starting point on the bottom, far below. Baited hooks and heavy sections feed over the stern, forming a line that will snake across the seafloor. Crew keep a steady rhythm, counting hooks and weights to match a mental picture of bottom contours below. At the surface, only a thin line of buoys betrays the kilometers of hooks resting on the bottom, out of sight. With the gear soaking, rest comes in short stretches, stolen between checks on wind and drift. From above, the boat looks idle, but below it, a corridor of scent is building along the seafloor.
Hundreds of meters down, baited hooks now rest just above sand and stones, forming a patient trail across the bottom.
Eventually, a huge halibut rises from the bottom, mottled back and twin eyes scanning a line of easy meals.
It glides in slowly, a living camouflage sheet, easing toward a chunk of bait hanging just off the sand.
A small tilt, a sudden inhale, and the circle hook rolls neatly into the jaw hinge where bone can hold steel.
Hooked, the halibut does not race upward. It surges sideways along the bottom, dragging the branch line tight.
Up close, the hook is exactly where designers want it, locked into solid bone at the mouth's corner.
Each burst throws sand and gravel aside, sending pulses of tension up hundreds of meters of line.
Not far away, another halibut half buried in sand eyes a second bait, waiting for the right moment to move.
It rises just enough to inhale the bait, and again the circle hook finds the jaw hinge instead of soft flesh.
Two flat giants now pull in different directions, bending the longline into a slow, shifting curve along the bottom.
From above, the size is obvious. A mottled slab of muscle covering more bottom than a man could span. The fish twists, trying to lie flat and use its body like a brake pressed against the seafloor. Along the line, some hooks hang empty, some slack, and a few now drive tight toward heavy halibut bodies. A large, dark eye tracks the unseen pull from above as the fish digs its fins into loose sand. Gradually, both halibut start to lift, pulled into water columns they rarely visit willingly.
As the line tightens, seafloor falls away beneath them, trading sand and stones for cold, open water.
Despite the strain, the hook stays put, holding bone instead of sawing through soft tissue or gills. One fish rolls, flashing a pale underside that rarely sees light before it rights itself and pushes on. Higher in the water column, they still move slowly, all brute strength and surface area instead of speed. Each tail beat is slow but powerful, a heavy paddle pushing against the line's relentless climb.
One halibut flares its fins, trying to turn itself into a living sea anchor against the pull. Along the system, only a few sections tighten, showing where the real weight is coming from. Near the upper layers, brighter light bleeds down, casting the fish's broad outline in higher contrast. From below, the last stretch shows rippled light above, a boundary halibut rarely cross alive. Two silhouettes now hover just under the skin of the ocean, broad outlines pressed against moving surface patterns. Even here, close to the surface, the hardware has not shifted, still locked into the corner of the mouth. A slow roll at the top hints at fatigue, the fish showing both camouflage and pale belly in one movement. From beneath the chop, their outlines warp under waves, two heavy shapes tethered to distant steel above.
At the surface, a single buoy suddenly cuts sideways, signaling heavy life dragging hard below.
Soon several floats strain in different directions, forcing the captain to nurse steel hull and gear carefully.
The hauler takes strain, transferring the fight from distant hooks to hydraulics and men at the rail.
Near the hull, one section of line cuts straight down, frothing the surface where heavy halibut hang beneath.
Crew lean out, eyes fixed where the leader will surface, ready to trade machine pull for human muscle.
Bubbles and tension marks rise first, signs that the flat weight below is finally approaching daylight. Then the halibut appears, a dark, flat shape pressed just under the skin of the sea beside the hull. Gloved hands close on the leader, feeling every slow, heavy sweep of the fish below.
Looking straight down, the fish is all surface area, a living door being hauled towards steel and air.
A broad strap is threaded beneath the fish, spreading hundreds of kilos across synthetic webbing instead of thin steel.
The crane takes the weight, water streaming off the halibut's edges as it begins to leave its home element. Suspended over the deck, the halibut finally shows full size, dwarfing the men working beneath it. Once on deck, the hook is backed out cleanly, leaving a neat mark where steel once held bone.
While one fish hangs above the deck, another still grinds circles beside the hull, refusing to come easy.
The gauge jumps once more, and a second strap is prepared. Another giant halibut is about to hit the deck.
Beside the hull, a second halibut finally appears, broad and dark, just beneath the rippled skin of the sea.
Gloved hands clutch on the second leader, transferring the fish's stubborn weight straight into human backs and shoulders.
Looking straight down, the second fish spreads across the water like a door, edges trembling under tension.
Another strap slides under the flat body, creating a cradle strong enough to lift hundreds of kilos cleanly.
The crane takes the strain, lifting the halibut clear, water pouring from its edges back into the Atlantic.
For a moment, both giants hang together, dwarfing the men, rail, and hardware of a full-sized industrial vessel.
Steel is backed out of bone with care, ending the direct connection between halibut and longline hardware.
The first fish settles onto rubber mats, its mottled back and sheer footprint dominated by deck lines and drains.
Side by side, the pair read like two slabs of seafloor laid on steel, each one wider than a man's outstretched arms.
A tape and quick math turn raw bulk into numbers, lengths, weights, and logbook entries that drive quotas.
Tags tie each carcass to time and place, turning anonymous flesh in the traceable, regulated product.
The crane swings the first fish toward the open hatch, trading open air for insulated steel and ice.
Below deck, the halibut settles into its own furrow of crushed ice, pressed against cold steel plating.
Shovels move quickly, burying fins and tail, so temperature stays even from head to tail.
Moments later, a second slab of whitefish muscle joins the first, lining up along the chilled bulkhead. As hauling continues, more flat bodies line up, a halibut-only story forming along the hold's cold floor.
The rest of the set brings a handful of smaller fish and a steady stream of empty, cleaned hooks.
Once the last hook is aboard, men fall into cleanup rhythm, coiling gear that will be used again and again.
With the set recovered, the hull swings away from its marker buoys and points toward home waters.
Below, the hold tells the story plainly, layer after layer of giant halibut and nothing else. Steel hull and loaded cold rooms work back toward shore, trading offshore banks for shipping lanes and harbor lights.
In the mess, talk circles around weights, prices, and which sections of the bank produce the best fish.
Down below, a single fish in the foreground shows classic halibut features: broad body, twin eyes, and mottled skin.
Hours later, a pale band of land creeps over the horizon, marking the end of this offshore run.
The halibut boat slides past concrete and cranes, joining other industrial hulls along the working waterfront.
Ropes bite onto bollards, trading open ocean motion for the controlled chaos of a working quay.
Look at the side of those halibut. Biggest ones I've seen all season.
One halibut rises again, swinging from hold to pallet under the hook of a dockside crane. Soon, pallets of flat-bodied fish rest on wet concrete, ready to move from ship's custody to processors' hands.
That one is 180 centimeters. Okay, recorded. Weight is 75 kilos.
Inside the plant, flatfish arrive on rails, sliding from dock roomer into fluorescent, temperature-controlled workflow. Heads and fins come off first, dropped into labeled bins, while cleaned bodies move toward filleting stations. A single side shows what buyers want: thick, firm, white meat, nothing like tuna red or salmon orange.
Vacuum bags reveal pale flesh inside, labeled clearly with species name, area, and codes tying back to the bank.
Pallets roll into a reefer trailer, handing responsibility from processors to logistics and distant markets.
In a city cold room, halibut occupies its own lane in the system, sorted by lot number and destination.
Some boxes peel away from wholesale stock, rolling into kitchens where halibut will be served with linen and stemware.
In the kitchen, a chef inspects a thick white fillet, judging texture and smell before a pan ever heats. The fillet becomes a row of even steaks, each one a small, identical fraction of offshore risk and effort.
The transcription is a single line of transcription reflecting the most salient spoken words occurring during the 8-second video.
Plated simply, the fish shows clean white flakes, a long way from the bottom mud where it started.
A fork and knife break the steak apart, releasing steam instead of the cold vapor that once hovered over the hold.
To the giant Atlantic halibut.
Cheers, everyone. Ganbei!
Ganbei!
Back in the kitchen, remaining portions are logged and returned to cold storage. The day's fish nearly spent.
Outside, empty cartons wait for recycling, silent evidence that deep-water fish have already moved through the kitchen. Later, the dining room falls quiet again, its connection to long lines and ice rooms hidden behind polished glasses.
Back at the quay, the halibut boat rests with hatches shut, waiting for fuel, gear checks, and the next weather window. The harbor glows under sodium lamps, hulls lined up along concrete like tools racked between jobs.
Beyond the breakwater, the Atlantic looks empty, hiding both the banks already worked and those still untouched.
Down on the banks, the bottom lies quiet again, a mix of sand and stones, waiting for the next set of hooks.
Farther offshore, swells roll steadily on, indifferent to which fish left and which still lie buried in mud.
In midwater, nothing breaks the blue-green gradient, yet migrations and feeding still go on beyond human sight.
At the horizon, sea and sky meet in a narrow band, framing banks that exist mostly as numbers on charts. Small swells rise and fall, the same motion halibut feel whether or not hooks are soaking below.
Deeper still, the water column fades to black, a space where fish move, but cameras almost never follow.
Calm returns to the surface, covering tracks of both vessel and gear, as if the trip never happened.
Out here, there are no signposts, only coordinates and memories marked in weather and catches. For now, the hunt for giant halibut pauses here, while the banks and their hidden fish keep moving without us.